Hi, my name is Nabeel. I've been coding for far too long. And I've been trying to get away from this. Okay, segue to your talk. I want to get away from coding. Because I somehow have this nagging feeling there's a life beyond this. There's something out there I can do better. UX for developers. What am I talking about? This is a cycle we should be all kind of familiar with. Server sitting all the way in the back end, either cloud. This is what we typically do, write code. In a lot of cases, the code we write generates some kind of a UI. And that's all we think about. But in reality, it takes it one step further. The final end user really is an end user, a real human being. And if we had UX, that's where it would lie, right between the user and our UIs. Now, not everybody has the luxury of being able to work as a designer. Sometimes you might have your side project, or sometimes there's things going on where this is all you have, no UX, the user is subject to what you have, and it ends up looking like a Microsoft Access form from way back. It looks like an exact trap model of your database. I'm not sure that's the best for coders in general, because who cares really? But to paraphrase Mark, it's all about looking cool, functionality be damned. Right?
Nobody gives a shit about your code.
Absolutely. Exactly.
No,
that's true.
nobody cares
As much
about
as you
your code.
think it is. Yes, it's very important and all that stuff, but and yes, you can come to a place like this and I can talk about the really fancy, esoteric functions that are uncovered and closure and do whatever, and you'll all be happy about that. But going back to this, right? Really, these are the guys who give us the money. And ultimately, it's about humans. Remember this, if there's no human in here, if this is all you have to do, at some point your job's going to be automated. You're going to be out of this. Just keep that in mind. So this is the one constant that we can't really program to very well, which is why I think we really need to look a little bit on the other side of what happens over here. Now, you might think developers are the twain may never meet compared to designers, but if that's what you think, maybe even understanding your enemy, trying to.
She's right there. She can hear.
Well, maybe she will spread the word now. That's the whole idea.
She's
Okay.
the perfect storm.
They're
She can do
waving the white
both.
flag.
She can do both. That's what you want.
All right. So being a programmer, really, I have zero creative, artistic talent. Right brain is dead, but I still want to make what I'm doing look good. Because ultimately, when I pitch the code to people, when I create some UIs and pitch it out to people, if the first thing that they see is really what they see, and if it doesn't aesthetically please them, you've lost kind of right there. It doesn't matter how cool your code is. And this is why I keep getting this feeling that there has to be something else we can do to take whatever coding that we do, right, to the next level by wrapping it and trying to understand some of these principles. The aesthetic thing is really important. It's hardwired into humans, right? This is part of our whole evolution thing. You see something that's, we're really good at finding out things that don't look quite right, things that look a little bit odd. And we also are really good at appreciating things that look beautiful. This is everybody. You can be the most hardcore programmer that you have, but you're still a human. You still have the innate ability in you. And that's what we need to appeal to if you want to again, I keep using this word, but take your code to the next level, right? This is a lightning talk. I'm going to go with some really simple ways that we can start applying UX. We may not be to the level of a proper dedicated designer, but there's still some things we can do to make our stuff look a little bit better. I'm going to pick up some of the examples that I've been using. Number one, this should be a first stop. Jacob Nielsen with the Nielsen-Norman Group is one of the preeminent UX people. You get a chance to go to one of his seminars or watch him on YouTube. It's very enlightening. I want to point out the date, 1995. This is when this one came out. 1995, remember, Netscape Navigator. That's when JavaScript was born. A lot of the principles that he's talking about still are very, very relevant today. He calls these the 10 usability heuristics. You go to any kind of UX course, and this is one of the first things they'll talk about. Heuristics, again, this is just like Pirates of the Caribbean, where they talk about the code, and they finally figure out the code is not really the code, it's just guidelines, and that's exactly kind of what this is. Very succinct things that you can use. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but I'll just pick up a couple of things, right? Visibility of system status. Simple example. You click the submit button. Did I click it? Do I click it again? Right? A simple thing that you make an indication that yes, you have done an action and that action is being carried on. Things like match between the system and the real world. We tend to think in terms of the programming domain, a database, things like that. Here's a simple example. Where I work, one of the things we do is we offer searches. We've got these petabyte databases where we offer searches, and which means that we have to have certain columns that are indexed, and these are the only columns that you use. Now, this is baked into what we do. It's become so common that, unfortunately, we've been using this term with the developers, with the business analysts, with the program managers, with the account managers, with the sales managers, and now our customers are using the same terms. Index columns. They shouldn't be using terms like this. The problem is, we think that this is a universal term, and we have actually error messages that say, please pick an index column to do your search. Right? That has nothing to do with what the users need for the software, the thing that they're actually paying for. There's a few other things like aesthetic and minimalist design. So this is one of the things I was talking about. Make it look, take the trouble to make it look a little bit better. The dividends that you get from the amount of work that you put in there just far outweigh the amount of time that you take away from your coding to go into this. Following this, we'll do a few exercises where we start touching on a few things, how we can start applying these things. I'm not going to go through this whole thing now, but when you get a chance, please just look up Jacob Nielsen, Usability Heuristics. This is one of my favorite resources. If you get a chance, pick up a copy of this book. It's, to me, it was a very eye-opening thing. This is one of the things that actually made me start thinking about, I started feeling ashamed about the kind of code that I was writing. Okay, now, the essence of this book is that micro decisions. Let me ask you this. Every one of you has a favorite piece of software, something that you really like, something that you also absolutely hate. Now, if I ask you, what is it about that piece of software that you actually, why do you like that? I'm willing to bet you're not going to be able to tell me a single reason. This is exactly why I like it. What happens is that when you, let me flip that around, why you might absolutely hate a piece of software. Again, same thing. I'll ask you, why don't you like this? You won't be able to elaborate and sit down and tell me very clearly this is exactly why I like it. The reason is because every time there's a little interruption, a little hiccup in what you're doing, it adds up. it keeps adding up. Now, it doesn't stop you from using it right then, but it keeps adding up. It keeps adding up, and what happens to you is that it becomes a cognitive overload. There's more things that you have to process that takes away from the reason why you were using the software in the first place. At some point, it reaches a critical mass. And that is when you make up your mind that this is a great piece of software. This just works. I love it. Or I hate this piece. I don't want to use it again. Which brings me down to don't make me think. What he's saying is that anytime you write a piece of code or any kind of element that interacts with the user, they shouldn't have to think, what does this do? Do I have to click on this? Is this something that takes me to the next page? Or is this the tag that I need to do? Any of those little debts that we start accumulating works against the effectiveness of your software. Again, when you get a chance, pick up one of these books. It's actually designed to be completed in a typical airline flight, so it's a really good book. And this is my all-time favorite book. Robin Williams, the Non-Designer's Design book, she's updated it, she's done quite a bit of work with it. The reason I like this is because they distill it down to, she distills it down to, and that's an acronym for, she says you just pick these 4 elements. Think about contrast, repetition, alignment, and proximity. And just these 4 things will take you a long way. Let's do a simple exercise. I picked a wireframe that we can maybe see how about applying these properly. All right. I purposely picked one of Stack UX Overflow. Just a rough one to just highlight what we have over here. Contrast. Contrast is one way of indicating hierarchy in what you're doing. Anytime you present a user with something, there's always an implicit hierarchy in that data. It's not just a flat data field for the most part. The more complex your apps, the more they're going to be interleaved with different states and different things, right? So one way of indicating that we're using contrast. Over here, for instance, just by using contrast, I can do things like, I can say the way it says option. That's obviously the first thing I need to look at. And then slightly reduced in contrast is the next line, enter IP address. And compared to that, the text below that. So that automatically, this is very intuitive for most humans, looking at that contrast allows you to drive how you want your software, your piece of code to interface into your human's mind, right? Repetition. Another thing that humans are really good at, repetition, is something that we find soothing, we find patterns in. That's essentially a lot of artists, that's what it is. There's pieces that you keep picking up again and again, which we have this innate ability to feel that it is something good. So in this case, repetition, the block on top kind of looks like the block over here, that kind of looks like the block over here, which allows us to feel that even though it's a big piece, there's repeated elements and somehow I can manage it better. I don't have to be overwhelmed with it. So it's one of the psychological things that feeds into what you do. Alignment. That to me was the single best thing that I took away from these things. What you do is you make sure in your designs that everything aligns with something else. Human mind and the human eye is really, really good at picking out things that are slightly off. And that's, I think, again, part of evolution, right? You're in the plains in the savannah, you need to find out just what is a little bit different. There's a saber-tooth hiding out over there, that's the thing that stands out. And so it's hardwired into us, and these are the kind of things that we can really leverage. As an example over here, every element in here is always aligned to another element. If you do that, you take a look at the whole thing. On the contrary, what I have over here does not align with what I have over there. And that immediately you can, just by looking at it, you can tell that these are 2 separate things. And I really want to do that because I want to say this is one piece we're talking about and this is talking about that. So, and again, zero artistic talent, but I'm able to glean something out of this that I can apply to the code that I do. And that's my talk.
Questions? Oh, Megan, Megan, go on, beat him!
Forwards.
You're my new best friend.
See?
What? He's
What?
making an effort at
Really?
least.
You be rude to her,
Designers and
and that
developers
makes her
can't
your
be friends.
friend?
He's making an effort, and I think that's the point.
Well, but again, the point is, when you start working in enterprises, right, it's very easy to say, oh, those designers, oh, those developers.
Yeah, and I wanted to make a point about that. So there's this, who takes the blame for when things fail, right? I mean, that's the big thing when it comes to all these departments working together,
The consultant.
collaborating on any one project, is that when that product is then launched and it's not performing, I mean, we're talking about all the business sense now behind all that. We're talking about the bottom line, whether or not it's pulling in the dollars you expected it to do. And then you're trying to find these flaws and where they were, and all of a sudden you're starting to point fingers at this department didn't do it this way, this department didn't do it that way,
And
the
that's
developers
actually
didn't code it right.
that's not constructive at all.
Right.
And
Right.
eventually you lose business and you lose your job, go find a job somewhere else and do something else. And that's what it boils down to. You're right, you're absolutely right.
So I think that, having UX, I mean, it's really intended to level that responsibility across all these departments and not have this it's them against us kind of attitude.
Them against us,
essentially.
right. And then you also, once you start doing, you start getting an appreciation now for designers when they come up with designs and you see, oh, they've managed to actually pick out something that looks aesthetically pleasing. And now you can start recognizing things.